What is up, guys? Welcome to the College Football Playoff Rankings reaction show for October 31st. This is something I've been thinking about doing over the past few years, but wanted to actually start this season just to be able to talk to you guys throughout about my exact reactions to the college football rankings and to maybe get y'all's thoughts. And we could also kind of talk about some other things going on in college football to really get an understanding of this almost being a new podcast for the channel. I just want to be able to give myself something to give you guys a little more of my personality and be able to interact with you guys going forward. So hopefully you guys enjoy this and we can start doing this on a weekly event. So the college football ranking show starts at 7 p.m. I thought, why not get this started a little early to be able to talk about some other things? I want to start off by talking about what I believe to be my college football playoff rankings if I were on the committee. Now, this is not what I think the college football committee is going to put. This is how I would rank it, and I want to explain it a little bit. So, coming in at number 10, I have Penn State. I'm going to do a top 10. So, I'm going to start with 10, go to 1, and we'll go through it that way. So, coming in at number 10, I have Penn State. Now, I think Penn State is one of the best teams in the country this year, but I'm a little concerned after how they played against Ohio State and how they played against Indiana last week. Their defense is ranked top 5 in the nation statistically, and they continue to perform at a high level, but the offense showed concerns when they had to go against Ohio State, and they still have Michigan left on the schedule. Going down to the wire at home against Indiana, that was a nightmare scenario and something you kind of expect after a game like they just went through against Ohio State, a very emotional game. So that's why I have Penn State in number 10. Coming in at number 9, I really struggled with this one just because they have the head-to-head already over one of the teams later on in the rankings. But I just, coming off a loss and a tough loss at that, is Oklahoma. Now, the reason I have Oklahoma at number 9 and maybe not at 10 and ahead of Penn State is they do have that top 10 win over Texas. It was a neutral site game, so it was against Texas and Red River, but I do think that should give them credit for the rankings. Now, they should have beaten Kansas. They struggled against Kansas. Kansas stepped up. Kansas is a good team. They did have their backup quarterback, which brings up some concerns. But I think Oklahoma should be ranked the 9th team coming into this college football playoff rankings. Coming in at number 8 is Alabama. Alabama's only got one loss, and it is a head-to-head loss to another team in these rankings I'm going to talk about in just a second. Alabama seems like they're finally getting it together. They have a huge test against LSU this week, number 13 LSU, that could decide the SEC West. I think if they win that game, they're only going to go up, and this could be one of those years where Alabama figures a way to sneak into the college football rankings, or college football playoffs, as much as we hate to talk about it that way. Coming in at number 7, I have Texas. Texas has probably one of the best wins on a resume out of everybody, going on the road and beating Alabama at Alabama. Texas is without their starting quarterback, Quinn Ewers. He's week by week, I believe. He's got a strained shoulder. Malik Murphy did not look amazing, but he didn't look terrible this past week against BYU. They kind of ran away with it in that BYU game. And I just feel like Texas is going to be coming in at the number 7 team. They're the second best one-loss team. Coming in at number 6 is Oregon. Now, Oregon is one of those teams where, had it been a neutral site game against Washington or at Oregon, I think Oregon wins that game. But I think they are one of those important teams to keep an eye on, especially if they could make up that loss to Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. I think Bo Nix is a Heisman Trophy contender, and I think they are putting together a special season in the last year of the Pac-12 before they go to the Big Ten. Coming in at number 5 is Florida State. Now, a lot of people are going to have Florida State higher than I have Florida State, but I just, from what I've watched, from how they played Duke, with Duke having their backup quarterback come in after Riley Leonard got hurt again, and some of the other games Florida State has played, I just don't think they're as dominant as you want in a college football playoff team. I don't think the ACC is one of the stronger conferences this year. I think they're actually one of the weaker Power 5 conferences. And while they are undefeated, it is hard to rank them ahead of some of the other teams I'm going to talk about who are also undefeated. Coming in at number 4 is Washington. They have the huge win over Oregon at home. won with a after Oregon missed a game tying or game winning field goal that would have sent it to overtime. And I think they're just playing well. They had the scare against Arizona State at home, but they handled Utah pretty well last week. They played Utah last week, I believe, and are looking like a really strong team. And if they continue to win out, if they win the Pac 12 championship and continue to stay undefeated, I think they are your fourth team in the college football playoffs. Maybe even the third team, because I still have two teams left to talk about that still have to play each other. Coming in at number 3 is Michigan. Now, Michigan kind of has the bias of not playing last week. So recency bias comes in with ranking some of these teams, but they also haven't hit the meat of their schedule. So it's hard to rank them higher up. Now, the committee's not going to care about what's going on at Michigan, but it still is something that you wonder whether they should with the ongoing NCAA investigation. But at this moment, I have Michigan as the number 3 team. They're beaten down on everybody they play. They really haven't had a scare. And I think the Penn State and Ohio State games are going to really solve how their season's going to end up going. Coming in at number 2 is Georgia. Now, a lot of people are going to have Georgia at number 1. I have Georgia at number 2. They're coming off a huge win over Florida. I thought that was a game where Florida could have maybe give them a little scare. I mean, their offensive coordinator overthought a 4th and inches call that just blew my mind why they would make that call. And from there, Georgia just sort of ran away with it. I think Georgia is finally getting their footing together. They had a few early season scares against South Carolina and some other teams, but usually pulled away in the second half in those games. I'm looking forward to seeing how Georgia plays against Missouri this week as a first major test at home. I kind of wish that game was in Columbia because then I think Missouri could pull the upset off. I don't see Mizzou pulling the upset, and I have Georgia coming in at number 2. They're probably going to end up being the number 1 team if they stay undefeated come season end. And coming in at number 1 is Ohio State. Ohio State has a top 5 or one of the top resumes so far this season. It hurts to put Ohio State at number 1. I'm a Wisconsin guy. As you can see, the Wisconsin pillow in the background. Tough game for us. We shouldn't have been in that game, but we stayed in that game. Ohio State's defense is unreal. I think Kyle McCord gets a little more trash talk than he should. I think he's a competent quarterback who can win them a national title if he doesn't usually make mistakes. He did make some major mistakes against Wisconsin, which kept Wisconsin in that game. That game could have really gotten ugly for Wisconsin early, especially after you lost Braylon Allen and DK to injuries and having a redshirt freshman quarterback and Braden Locke playing. But McCord let Wisconsin stay in it. Camp Randall, scary to play in at night. Camp Randall, scary to play in during Halloween weekend. And we saw that. Wisconsin's not having the season we thought they were going to have, but they're still one of the top teams in the Big Ten. And that's still a good win for Ohio State. Ohio State has the win at home against Penn State. They went on the road and beat Notre Dame. And I just think their defense is playing championship-esque football. And I think Ohio State is the best team in the nation. And then toss in the way Marvin Harrison Jr. is playing, and it's just unreal. Ohio State has not been healthy most of the season. They're finally starting to get pieces back. They got Henderson back this week, and he just ran all over the Badgers defense. And the Badgers have a pretty good defense this year, contrary to popular belief. So I was just really impressed with Ohio State. I want to see a little more from their offense, but it's hard to bet against Marvin Harrison Jr. And that's where we're going to move into the Heisman contenders. I am going to go a little controversial pick. Starting in at number 5, I have Luther Burden coming in as my 5th best Heisman contender. Coming in at 4, I have JJ McCarthy. Last week, I was sitting on a podcast with Cole Adams and Scott Fisher, and I talked about how I thought JJ McCarthy was going to win the Heisman Trophy. Again, they didn't play this week, so kind of out of sight, out of mind. But you also might have to wonder whether the Heisman ballot is going to consider what's going on at Michigan. I don't think the NCAA investigation is done by then, but voters might be considering, oh, if the sign stealing thing is as big a deal as the media is making out to be, do we want to put JJ McCarthy on the Heisman ballot? So that's why I have JJ McCarthy dropping off from my pick last week with Scott Fisher to dropping down to the 4th spot. Coming in at number 3 is Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix has revived his career at Oregon, and I have just loved seeing what he has done this season over at Oregon, and he's been fun to watch. And then coming in at number 2 is Michael Penix Jr. He could have run away with the Heisman. He had the scary game against Arizona State where he just didn't play well. I want to see a little more out of Penix towards the end of the season. I think he's the one who probably wins the Heisman Trophy, but I don't think he is the player who deserves to win the Heisman Trophy, because I think the person who deserves to win the Heisman Trophy this year, if the season ended today, is Marvin Harrison Jr. Harrison Jr. is just making plays left and right. He's the reason the Ohio State offense is playing the way they are playing. I mean, there was a play in the Badger game uh, this weekend where McCord just threw it up. Harrison caught it. I said, they called it a touchdown. I thought there's no way this is a touchdown. Yet then they reviewed it and he had at least 1 foot. I don't know if he had 2 feet in, but he just made an insane play that had my jaw on the ground. I think Harrison Jr. is the best college football player in the game today, and I think he's just unguardable. You put your number 1 cornerback on him or your number 3 cornerback on him, and he's going to burn them. He's going to make them look bad. And I think he might possibly be able to go number 1 overall, depending on who has the number 1 overall draft pick. But I think if you're a Heisman voter, you need to consider what Harrison Jr. is doing, especially with Penix and Knicks playing on the West Coast. People don't like to stay up for those games. As stupid as it sounds, if you don't stay up for those college football games, you shouldn't have a vote in the Heisman Trophy. But I think it's something that is another thing to consider when choosing who's going to win the Heisman Trophy this year. And that's why I have Marvin Harrison Jr. as my Heisman pick as of October 31st. I think he's going to show up in games towards the end of the season. And I think that Michigan game could be the game that wins him the Heisman Trophy when all said and done. What do you guys think? If you are enjoying the show, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really want to get to be able to do this more, and I want to be able to interact with you guys more. So who do you guys think is your top 4 for the college football playoff rankings? And who is your Heisman Trophy pick? Let me know in the comments section below. And also, if you guys have any questions or want me to talk about any specific topic for these shows, I am going to be opening up a mailbag going forward to have some questions prepared going into these shows if we continue doing these week in and week out. But if you have questions throughout the shows or have things you want me to talk about, leave them in the live chat. Let me know. I am monitoring the live chat. I want to get guests going forward. I tried to get Scott today. He was busy. Cole Adams is over at a Maction game as Maction returns. So I hope to get those guys on in the coming weeks, and some of my other YouTube buddies to get them involved. I do agree. I just released a video on Air Force last week. Air Force football is having an insane season. I think the craziest thing that happened this week, I don't know if you guys were watching, but in that Air Force game, Colorado State got penalized because their fans were throwing snowballs at the Air Force sideline, which that snow was unreal. I was just in Denver over the weekend. It had like a foot of snow throughout the whole day, and turning on that game, watching a snow football game, watching the triple option run, they ran away with it. And I think Air Force deserves a little more love. I'm really curious to see where they end up in the college football rankings. I think they're going to probably be in the 15 to 17 range like they are in the AP poll, but I am excited to see them continue to climb. I hope they can keep this undefeated season going. I wish this was the year of the 12-team playoff, because if it was, they would be in the college football playoff. But yes, I agree. Air Force should get some more love. Although they aren't the flashiest team, I think they're doing some crazy things this year. Now, talk about teams that aren't super flashy. As a Wisconsin fan, I'm a little disappointed over this news, but I kind of knew it was coming. Iowa's Brian Ferentz has come out and resigned as offensive coordinator. I saw some reports saying it was immediate, but I believe it's at the end of the season. Under him, Iowa has not been that great on the offensive side of the ball. They put in his contract last year that he needed to average 25 points per game to keep his job, as well as I believe Iowa going 7-5. While the wins continued to go, the offense has not shown up. And it's just points. It's not even just offensive points, it's points per game. So the special teams and defense were saving him for parts of the season, but overall, Iowa was averaging 19.5 points per game, which is 120th in the nation as of now, as of the time of recording. And they are last year they averaged 17.7 points per game, which was 123rd in the nation. Iowa wants to be competing in the Big Ten West. Iowa is competing in the Big Ten West, even with that horrendous offense. And the writing was on the wall going back to last year. I was amazed he kept his job going into this year. I didn't think he was going to keep his job, but as a Wisconsin Badger fan, I was hoping they'd hold on to it. Uh, as the college football ranking show begins, happy Halloween, guys. By the way, I forgot to say that at the beginning of the show. But I'm really curious to see where Iowa goes. Uh, I have a few people that I've got in my notes. I may mispronounce some of these names, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time for that. But the leading candidate to replace Ferentz at Iowa is John Budenmeyer, who played at Wisconsin, actually, ironically, and was the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at Colorado State, and just many believe Iowa's going to stay internally. He's an offensive analyst right now for Iowa, and he's viewed to be the favorite. Another guy to keep an eye on is Liddell Betts, who played at Iowa himself. He's the current running back coach, and he has high school experience. Paul Christ, the former Wisconsin Badger coach, is being talked about as a possible replacement. I think that would be insane. You see Jim Leonard go become an analyst for Illinois, and then you see Paul Chris go and become the Iowa offensive coordinator. I That would hurt as a Badger fan. I don't know how likely that is, but it is something to keep an eye on. And then the last guy to talk about is George Barnett, who's the offensive line coach right now. He does have an offensive coordinator background at Tulane and I believe Miami of Ohio as well. So it wouldn't be a shock for him. I mean, if you look at what happened to Wisconsin when they had an offensive line coach turned offensive coordinator, it didn't end well for us. So I think that's probably my fifth choice if I'm Iowa fans. There's talks about, I believe, Grubbs over at Washington. The shoot for the stars hire would be him. He's from Iowa. He played at a D3 school in Iowa, but I don't see him leaving Washington, especially with Washington joining the Big Ten and what they're doing together. I can't wait to see the Oregon Ducks. I want to see them win out, Trevor. I'm actually going to the Oregon at Arizona State game with some college friends at the end of the month. So if you guys are at that game, let me know. I'd love to meet up with some fans and see all around out there. I want to get some more interactions with you guys going forward. It's why I want to do this live stream show a little more, and I want to cater this stuff to you guys. I want to have fun with you guys. We're about to hit 10,000 subscribers, which is just unreal for me. So I can't thank you guys enough for that. So I just want to be able to give back to you guys, have a little more fun. I have some crazy things planned going into the end of this year and on to the 2024 season. I'm working with some colleges or trying to get some press passes to get you guys some behind the scenes coverage down the road. And I blows my mind that I have the opportunity to even be able to do this, that I have the audience that I have with you guys. So I can't thank you guys enough for all this opportunity. I'm just some kid who started a YouTube channel because I messed up my grades my first semester of college and having a little too much fun. And now I get to have an audience and talk about the sport I love to talk about. So anything you guys want to cater to these shows to, any type of content you guys want, please let me know. I do want to give back a little more. I want to involve you guys a little more going forward. So the college football rankings show is on. We're just waiting for the rankings to start coming out. I didn't know the exact time the show is going to come on. I just wanted to get on and talk about some other things. If there's any questions or anything you guys want me to talk about, please leave those in the comments below. I love interacting with you guys. So the United Drills of America. I see you mentioned how USC survived this week. And I'm sorry to bring this topic up, but I don't think this season ends very well for USC. I think they barely survived Cal. They barely survived Colorado. I think there should be concerns in Los Angeles. I mean, there's talks about Lincoln Riley leaving for the NFL. I don't know why you would leave for the NFL at this point, but there are the rumors of him leaving. It feels like they're there every year. You have Caleb Williams, a Heis people were predicting him to be a second-year Heisman Trophy winner, and things have just not come together. I don't know why he continues to keep Alex Grinch on that staff. It continues to blow my mind from how they did at Oklahoma to now where they are at USC. The defense let up 49 points to Cal. They let up 41 points to Colorado and let Colorado back into that game. They let a Utah offense with a walk-on quarterback. I love Barnes, but they shouldn't have even been in that game with it being in Los Angeles. They let them in and let them beat them by driving down the field and getting that game-winning score, and they still have to play number 5 Washington, go on the road to Oregon and host UCLA, all top 25 teams at the moment. I don't know what you're doing. So the college football playoff rankings are coming out. Air Force is number 25. Behind Tulane, who's 7-1. I think that's a real slap in the face for Air Force right there, with them ranking them at 25. USC coming in at 20, UCLA at 19, Utah at 18, Oregon State at 16. I mean, kind of expected. I think USC is ranked a little higher than I would have ranked them. I think the AP poll is a little more accurate with that. I still can't get over the Air Force being ranked 25. You're 8-0 and doing everything you can. Like, yeah, they don't have the strongest schedule, but they're playing at a high level. They're beating who they need to beat, kind of blowing out a lot of these teams. So I think that's a little slap in the face to Air Force. Waiting for the next set of the rankings to come out right here. And I think it's surprising that they put Tulane ahead of them, though Tulane's only loss, I believe, is to Ole Miss, which they lost a close game to Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, it looks like, is probably going to be in the top 15 unless I miss something. Louisville coming in at 13, Missouri at number 12. The committee actually ranked Penn State lower than I have Penn State. They have Penn State at 11. I'm blanking on who's probably ahead of that at that point. Is that going to be Ole Miss at 10? Let me know if I missed something right there. I'm doing too many things all at once right now. But LSU at 14, a little surprising. I thought they would have given LSU a little more credit, but, I'll take it. Curious to see this top 10 compared to my top 10 too. Already got one team wrong. And we're going to improve this going forward. We're going to get a little better at this. It looks like the rankings got released at 7:06 this week. So we're going to time that up a little better. First time going live. Ole Miss is number 10. So Tulane, who's 7-1, their only loss is to Ole Miss, whose only loss is to Bama. So that kind of adds up to why Tulane's sitting at 24. I would have wanted to see Air Force ranked higher. I think it's BS that the College Football Committee can't rank James Madison. Oklahoma coming in at number 9, like I got Oklahoma at number 9. This next one's going to be really curious. So they do have Texas ranked ahead of Oklahoma, even though Oklahoma has the head-to-head win. Let's see what comes next. What do you guys think about the rankings so far? Who's overranked? Who's underranked so far? Let me know in the comment section below. Alabama, number 8. So we're staying on track with the committee right now. This number 7 pick is going to be interesting to see. I think the only thing that I could see them changing is maybe Texas and Oregon, and then where they have Georgia and Ohio State and Michigan. That's where I think I might disagree with them, and Florida State. But a little more accurate than I thought I'd be at this point. So coming in at number 7, just waiting for the graphic to pop up, is Texas. So I agree with the 7, 8, and 9. Surprised at the 10 and 11, but also the Indiana scare makes sense for why Penn State might have dropped out of the top 10. It was a crazy ending to that game. They escaped, but coming off an emotional loss to Ohio State, that does make sense. Again, let me know what you guys think about the rankings so far in the comment section below. Who's overranked? Who's underranked? Who do you think's getting screwed by the committee? This year feels weird for me because this year I just don't feel like there's that one team where I'm gonna be like, "Oh my god, this team's gonna sneak into the playoffs," and I'm gonna be angry. I think the transfer portal and NIL has created an opportunity for college football to have a little more parity, and it's made things a little more exciting. It's not while you do wish Air Force would be higher, who's completely undefeated, while you do wish James Madison could be getting ranked, it's not so you I guess we've kinda gotten used to it, that it doesn't lead to these overreactions that you see in years past. Like, I'm not disappointed with the ranking so far. Usually at this point, there's, like, 1 or 2 teams where I'm like, "Oh my god, that team's overranked," but it just doesn't feel like that. I don't know how you guys are feeling about it right now. Love to see your guys's, interactions in the comment section if possible. Uh I am surprised at USC being 20. I thought they might have dropped down a little more, but what are you gonna do? Um, it should be interesting to see. So, I have the same top 6 as them, it's just where it all sits. I'm guessing they're gonna put Georgia 1, I'm guessing Michigan's gonna be number 2, and I'm guessing Ohio State's gonna be number 3, and they're gonna flip Washington and Florida State. If I had to put my prediction in right now, uh, while don't agree with that, that's what I think they're gonna do based off of years past and the way things are right now in college football. But it should be interesting to see. I There's talks about people that they might put Oregon ahead of Washington. I don't see that happening because Washington does have that head to head, and that's a big part of everything. But again, I think if that game is neutral site or is at Oregon, Oregon wins that game. So also, you really can't react too horribly if they decide to flip those two teams, but it'll get decided if both teams continue to win out in the Pac-12 title game. So everything's going to kind of solve itself out at some point. The only thing where things might get complicated is if Penn State beats Michigan and then Michigan beats Ohio State, and then all of a sudden you have the mess in the Big Ten. But I still think the winner of the Big Ten championship ends up getting that playoff spot. So they're about to reveal the top 6. Let's see this. Oregon coming in at number 6 as expected. Coming in 7-12 for future reference when they start releasing the top 6. So we'll plan this out a little better going forward. Gotta get the rest off. Gotta get used to this. First time going live by myself. Washington number 5, like I thought they were going to do. So that means Florida State's probably going to be number 4. Uh, I think Washington's better than Florida State. I have not been super impressed by Florida State from what I've watched, and I'm not impressed by the ACC. But again, I think it'll all solve itself out by season's ends. Everybody's kind of in control of their own destiny in the college football playoff rankings this year. Like, there's no team that might sneak in because of this or that. Everybody's playing at a high level. Florida State coming in at number 4. Yeah, so I was right about so the only thing is, how do they rank Ohio State, Georgia, and Michigan? Do they keep it how I expected? Like I said, Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Ohio State 3, or do they lean more towards my rankings? I hate doing my own rankings. I'm just some guy who makes college football content and watches way too much college football. That's just me. I'm I'm just some kid. Uh, Coming in at number 3, or trying to remember how they do this. I was not able to watch college football last year. Some work life stuff going on that pulled me away. So it's my first time watching the college football ranking show in almost 2 years. So Michigan coming in at number 3. So question is Ohio State going to be 1 or is Georgia going to be 1? I'm not too far off with how I thought the playoff rankings were going to be, uh, or how I would have ranked it. Georgia is at number 2. So the only thing me and the committee have really different is Washington and Florida State flipped, and Penn State and Ole Miss flipped, and everything like that. I can't believe I'm going to give this credit to them. But I think the committee, with where we are right now, did a pretty good job. Like, I'm kind of surprised that you kind of expected Washington to go behind Florida State because Florida State's got like according to like the way the algorithms work, Florida State has played one of the toughest schedules so far this season. They've gotten some lucky breaks with some players getting hurt against them, but they did beat LSU. They did beat Duke, and those are some really high quality wins. I don't know. How do you guys feel? What would have you changed for the rankings? Let me know in the comment section below. But I think the committee doing the way they did it, I'm not surprised. I'm not up in arms about anything. Maybe I've gone numb to it all. But aside from the Air Force stuff, which, I'm a little biased towards Air Force, as you guys love that video that I released last week. Uh, I I'm not surprised off of anything. I thought Ohio State had the best resume. They have the best strength of record, so it's not surprising that they got ranked number 2. Now that we got the actual college football playoff rankings, let's go talk about this upcoming week of college football with some very interesting games, some games that are going to decide a lot of things going forward. So, the first game I want to talk about is it's going to be Kansas State at Texas. Texas is not expected to have Quinn Ewers heading into this game, I don't believe, and it should be an interesting watch whether Texas can continue the dream season. I think if Texas wins out, I think they figure a way to wiggle themselves into the playoffs. So this will be a huge game for Texas. Avery Johnson, true freshman, really being impressive as a switch up quarterback. He's getting a lot of rushing yards, a lot of rushing touchdowns. Kansas State lost the heartbreaker to Missouri with that insane like 61-yard game-winning field goal. They're no slouch. This should be a tight game. This could be a tough game. I'm going to give Texas the edge, even with Malik Murphy. I think Brooks is playing out of his mind, and if you just feed Brooks and get the ball in Xavier Worthy's hands, I think Texas could run away with it, but I do think it's going to be a tight game, but I think Texas gets the win in the end. Next game I really want to talk about is Army at number 25 Air Force. 17 in the AP poll, 25 according to the college football playoff poll. This, I think Air Force, like they did with Navy, while the game score was 17-3, I think Air Force, watching that game, outplayed Navy, and it's just the fact that the two teams play the triple option offense. Air Force is playing to win to secure the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, and I think they're going to be playing with a vengeance. I think they're going to feel a little disrespected with where they are sitting in the rankings. So I think Air Force does somehow figure a way to run away with it. Again, this is a game. It's a rivalry game. It's a massive rivalry game, trophy online and everything. It's a game that could go down to the wire. But as Jeff Monken tries to implement a little more of the Coastal Carolina speed option setup with the new NCAA rules based off of cut blocks, I think Air Force is running their offense at a much higher rate, and I think they end up running away with it late. Now, the game I'm really excited for is number 14 Missouri traveling to number 1 Georgia. I think this is going to be Georgia's biggest test of the season. And same goes for Missouri, that you want to win the SEC East, you got to beat the best, and they'll be playing on the road against Georgia. I think that stadium's going to be rocking. I think Missouri is going to come out with a vengeance. I think they're actually ranked 12 in the college football playoff committee, not 14. 14 is the 8 people ranking when I was setting these graphics up at the bottom. I think Missouri, if they win this, they could find themselves skyrocketing up the college football playoff rankings and could find themselves in the area of maybe making the college football playoffs. I mean, what a turnaround for Eli Drinkwitz from being on the hot seat by many people's thought, like people feeling that way, to possibly getting his team positioned for the college football playoffs or the New Year's Six Bowl bid. Like, just what a turnaround. I mean, they could have a late season collapse, but I think the way that they're playing, having Luther Burden, who is wide receiver 2 behind Marvin Harrison Jr. in all of college football. I think it's something that's just fun to watch, and I don't think Missouri is gonna pull the upset, but I would not be surprised if Missouri pulls the upset. Sadly, and I got a video coming out about this tomorrow, at the time of this live stream, a little heads up for tomorrow's video. Bedlam is gonna be coming to an end, most likely due to college foot conference realignment, and it's just gonna be sad to see. Uh, this game looks completely different now, especially after Oklahoma loses to Kansas. They might have been looking forward to Bedlam, getting caught up in bad weather, and playing a really good Kansas team, but Oklahoma State looked dead in the water and looked to be in a bad place to start the season. They're now on a 4-game win streak, and this being the last matchup, Oklahoma State's pissed of Oklahoma leaving. Oklahoma's kind of annoyed that Oklahoma State won't continue this rivalry going forward. Mike Gundy's been outspoken about it all. I think both teams are going to come out fired up. Both coaches have links to Bedlam, to earlier in their career or playing for said school. So I think it should be an exciting game. It's going to be a game wherever I am at. I'm going to try to find a place to sit down and watch the game, and I'm just going to appreciate it. It's a game I was really hoping to be at, but I just couldn't get it to work out with life and everything. So if you're a fan of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, try to get to Bedlam. It's heartbreaking that it's coming to an end, and keep an eye out for my video tomorrow on it all. Next game is a game that I think is going to fly under the radar, and people are going to look at the box score and be a little surprised. But when you actually look at the two teams, it's not that surprising. It's going to be 23 ranked AP poll James Madison traveling on the road to 6-2 Georgia State. Now, this is a game that if James Madison wins, they're in a really good place, and there are some ways for them to make a bowl game. If they win out, although their waiver has been rejected, if there's not enough 6-6 teams, which is a possibility of that happening, especially if you look at the athletics projections of how teams are going to end up, James Madison could find themselves into a bowl game. The projected bowl game is a really intriguing matchup of the Cure Bowl Liberty between James Madison. But James Madison does have a test this week against Georgia State as they continue to go to be 12-0 and be the first 12-0 team to not automatically qualify for a bowl game, as they don't even get a chance to play in their conference championship. Sunbelt, change this, get James Madison to play. They're your best team to possibly win the conference championship. Another massive game is number 5 Washington travels to number 20 USC. I think Washington's going to run away with this one. I think I haven't even looked at the spread for this game, but I'm taking Washington. I don't, if you're Lincoln Riley, you're avoiding the media. That's got cause for concern for me. Caleb Williams doesn't really have the offensive line we all thought he had at the beginning of the season, and is starting to try to do too much. And when you play hero ball, that's when mistakes are made. And it just looks like USC could finish 7-5 to end the season, and it's not going to end well. Then you have number 13 LSU at number 8 Alabama. This is where College Game Day is going. This is going to be a really intriguing matchup. I'm going to be excited to watch it. I'm going to try to find a place to sit down and watch the game. I'm going to be traveling for work, unfortunately, this weekend. So I try to avoid working on Saturdays, but this month, this is my only Saturday I'm working. So I'm going to try to find a place wherever I am to watch the game. LSU beats Bama. That hurts Texas's resume, and as they try to win out and make a college football playoff argument for themselves, it also kind of eliminates Bama from sneaking into the playoffs. Because then at that point, I think LSU might control the SEC West. I got to look at the standings and look at the tiebreakers going forward for that for next week's episode. We'll know a little more information, but Bama wins out. They could be in a good place. Hey, Scott, how you doing? Sorry, I unmuted myself accidentally. I think Ohio State was the right pick for number one. I think they have the best strength of record. They have the best resume with wins over Penn State, Notre Dame, and Wisconsin. I think that Wisconsin win and the way they won that game helped them really secure that number one spot going on the road in Camp Randall. The Penn State game helps. They beat the 11th best team, and I think Notre Dame was 15 in the rankings. So based off of just pure resume, Ohio State was the right decision. I think it's all going to play itself out. I think Michigan, Ohio State are going to be playing for the Big Ten spot and also playing for the college football playoff spot for the Big Ten, unless Penn State decides to throw a wrench in that, and then things get really interesting. But I think Ohio State was the right decision. I don't like saying that because I don't really care for Ohio State, but as a Wisconsin fan, they've been the heartbreaker of my life over the past 20-ish years. But I think that was the right decision at number one. Is there, before I close this show out, I was trying to go 45 minutes for the show. Is there anything else you guys want me to talk about? If not, I'm going to end this thing as week one of the college football playoff rankings gets released. And the first episode of my college football playoff reaction show comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I had fun doing this. I hope to get Scott involved come next week and Cole, who's at Maction, to get involved too. Scott, you missed me talking about Missouri football before. Talking about how I really want to see them upset Georgia this week. But I'm hoping Brady Cook plays out of his mind and gets Missouri the win this week. And then we could talk about Missouri as a college football playoff contender. What's it been, 2007, 2011, or 2012 since the last time Missouri was talked about in a college football national championship position? I don't know. It should be exciting. But that's going to be our show for tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll see you guys next week, next Tuesday, same time, same place. We got a little bit of a better strategy to plan out the show next week. And Scott, maybe we'll get you to talk about how Missouri played against Georgia next week on live. But that's going to be it, folks. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, remember to embrace the grind.